We move at the speed of light. We are always interested in anything that makes us smarter or faster. You need every bit of technology to help you move as quickly as possible so that we can react to the outside environment in a way that gives us competitive advantage. And I am a huge fan of agile marketing. The most important pieces to me are setting a super clear strategy of the incomes that you want to drive and creating a constant evolving strategy. We actually just signed on with Verve. It's an insights platform powered by AI where you are able to take the power of humans to help you move quickly and iterate. As a consumer, I am so excited for the refinement of better information, better searches, better curation of information. The mission is at the heart of everything that we do. The more product we sell, the more kids we can benefit. When I did not show up as my authentic self, I did not gain the alignment that I needed. The more authentic you can be and the more the true human connection can happen.
Here we go. Welcome, welcome. I am your host, Jon Wallett, and welcome back to AdTech Heroes. We have an exciting episode today. We are going to be talking about how transformation and agility are reshaping modern marketing. And I'm very excited, super delighted, because I have with me today one of my favorite people in the industry. I was very fortunate to meet Sarah, I think 2 years ago now, maybe a little bit longer because time is a flat circle. But Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for joining us. And you come to us as the head of marketing, vice president at Yoobi. You have incredible experience as a leader in CPG, in retail, previously at Target and General Mills. So just a wealth of knowledge. And I think your experience speaks volumes of not just ad tech, but of technology as a whole and how, your career sounds like it's been focused on transformation with organizations and marketing think. So, here at the podcast, what we normally like to do is, really kick things off to focus on you, the ad tech hero, and learn about your story. So, can you help us and just tell us a little bit more about what first sparked your interest in advertising and what brought you to the Sarah of today?
Yeah. So I've always been really interested in humans. So for me, that in college meant that I was really interested in what I thought was marketing and psychology. I didn't actually know exactly what that meant. But I was really fortunate to start my career at General Mills. I did work in contests, sweepstakes, toys in the cereal boxes, all those really, really fun things that entice someone to buy. Went into brand management, did kind of a work across the four P's, and then went to Target actually, where when I first started my work there, they were looking for kind of a brand manager, but what that meant for them was a merchant. And so I got to be a buyer for a number of years and really think truly with the consumer at the center and what that meant. It was right as omni-channel was starting the evolution, and it was so fun. And so through that work, I actually did pure transformation work for some time. I was actually in the HR function with merchandising as my client, and then brought it all back together in marketing at General Mills, where I did some B2B and B2C work. And then now I'm at Yoobi, where I get to do a little bit of everything across the marketing space in my role as head of marketing.
Love that. Love that. So here we are today at Yubi. So can you tell us a bit more about Yubi itself? Because I feel like this is, watching your journey and seeing you go from General Mills to Yubi was exciting for me because I didn't know much about the company to start. And then talking to you, I found it to be such a invigorating and interesting company. So can you share a little bit about Yubi and your role there?
Yes. So Yoobi is an amazing company. So they are a purpose-based school supply and stationery company. For every product that is purchased, we give to a student in need in the United States. And we do all of your favorite notebooks and pens and art supplies kind of across the entire category. And we do a ton of license work as well. So you can find your favorite Barbie products, Star Wars, Harry Potter, etc. And so in my role, I get to do everything from insights to thinking about the brand to marketing communications to then thinking truly to how do we bring it to the retailers and what does that partnership look like, both with the retailer and our license partners. So super fun. I get to do a little bit of everything that I've got to do in the past. And the company is just an amazing and super fun, high energy company.
That's awesome. So just day to day for you, it sounds like it changes and fluctuates depending on the priority of the day versus the week. And Because you wear so many hats, I'd love to just better understand, like, how does technology play in your role? Like, I think there's might be a misunderstanding about certain roles, and vice president, head of marketing. That's such a broad, title. How do you look at technology involved in the work that you're doing on a day to day basis?
Yeah, I think because we move at the speed of light, we are always interested in anything that makes us smarter or faster. I think coming from a bigger organization or having kind of bigger organizations in my background, so much of it is a longer alignment process, kind of getting key stakeholders and just that collective brain power that kind of brings you from point A to point B. And when you're small and scrappy, you need every bit of technology to help you move as quickly as possible to analyze insights, to get you to product prototyping faster, to help you visualize what a product could look like, et cetera. And so we've got lots of little tools and pieces that help us move as quickly as possible so that we can react to the outside environment in a way that gives us competitive advantage in the marketplace.
It's great, and I feel like from what you've talked about and just hanging out with you and learning about your career experience and who you are as a person, transformation is always seems to be at the forefront of what you think about, what you do. Um, I'm curious, just what does transformation really mean to you? In the business that you do, and how is that perspective of transformation? How has it evolved across the course of your career? Transformation at a big company like you described versus where you are today, like it means very different things. So, just can you tap on that and tell us a little bit about how that's evolved and what that means for you?
Yeah, what's interesting is I think about the early part of my career, a couple things were true. One, I was at a larger organization, but two, the world was just such a different place back then, where again, you would have your annual planning process and you could spend months getting ready for that and seeing that through the entirety. And then if something needed to change, that was going to be a major transformation moment. You were going to have to think pretty deeply about how you got alignment and how you brought that strategy through. And in today's day and age, nothing stays true for a year anymore. And so now I think for me, transformation is really about understanding your key customer, your key consumer, and then your internal stakeholders, and constantly evolving to make sure that as you're setting a strategy and trying to bring the collective from point A to point B, it is constantly thinking and iterating of how you get work through the system in that format.
Right, right. And to that point, you're describing as consumer sentiment. It sounds like it's an ever, I mean, it always has been an ever evolving target. But you're describing like today's day and age and how people consume media, right? And how do we begin to think about addressing them from that top of the funnel all the way down? So this idea of agile marketing that you're describing, right? How does that change the way you think of certain channels, right? When you approach things like retail media as like a partnership aspect, like just talk me through that thinking and how you can then hone in on that target, that constantly moving, evolving consumer target.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of agile marketing. And I would say the principles of large A agile, but using it in adapted ways for whatever kind of the team format that you need. But I think the most important pieces to me are setting a super clear strategy of the outcomes that you want to drive, and then inviting all the key people to the party, and creating a constant evolving strategy and backlog that as data comes in, as priorities need to shift or change, as you're watching how things are performing, you can constantly bring that party of all your different channels or key stakeholders along to continuously iterate against what it's going to take to meet those objectives because things are moving so quickly and suddenly there can be a viral trend that pops up out of nowhere or there's a competitor that enters the category. You just need to constantly be listening and able to pivot your team really quickly to adapt.
Right, right. Adaptability, that's what it's about, right? So it's like listen, learn, and then activate, right? That's what you're describing there. And this leads to our industry, or actually our society's most feared or used or excited word or acronym, which is AI, right? So everything, I feel like every time I say that on the podcast, I'm like, we need that lightning and thunder clap in the background, like, because it's
Take a
just such a,
drink, John Wallett,
yeah,
take a
yeah,
drink every time.
exactly. Yeah, let me get an espresso martini every time I say that. But on that note, how are there tools that you guys are looking at or using internally to help reshape how your marketing teams work and how they adapt to that speed? I imagine the answer is yes. You're shaking your head, but tell us a little bit more of is there a singular tool you're developing or a multitude of different tools that you're looking at? How does that then reflect in the execution?
Yeah, I'm super excited. We actually just signed on with Verve. So Verve is an AI, is an insights platform powered by AI, where you are able to take the power of humans to help you move quickly and iterate and take product concepts and use AI agents to make yourself smarter. But then, like I said, there's the human element then to also take it and verify with actual people to make sure that the work you're doing is resonating. It's been a company that I've been super interested in for some time. And then there's huge players within the CPG industry that are also starting to see, I think, some of the same results with this type of technology. And so I'm super excited to see what that will be able to unlock for us.
Great, great. And then through that, this tool and Verve, um, how is that helping you? Talk me a little bit further down the rabbit hole with them, or just like how you guys are utilizing the tech. How is that helping to accelerate things like product development or go to market cycles? I'm just really curious because I think that there's obviously broad use for data collection and interpretation by AI models and agents, but always very curious of how that's helping to refine a specific task. Right, in a go-to-market cycle and addressing that is a very specific task. So, and feel free to answer any one of those. Like, how are you finding it most effective for product development or go-to-market? Like, where do you find the best use case right now?
Yeah. So I have different concepts of how I think it's all going to come to life internally. I think the case studies that I have been really inspired by is where you're using the platform to ingest everything that you know about your consumer or about the marketplace to kind of create this really holistic look of what might be true or might be possible using your team plus AI agents to help create ideas that could be bigger than even your team might be able to create themselves, or to potentially bring in expertise that might be on what you have within your team, and then going through to the product development cycle of actual concepts based on that, human verification then kind of along the way too, to say, hey, this is kind of where we're headed, how does that resonate, what does that look like, what might that feel like, and using that back and forth again through your team, AI agents, data, to iterate so quickly that what might have taken months in the past is probably taking hours, maybe days, but you can move really, really quickly.
Yep, yep, and I think, that's a theme we hear all the time, even here at CTAC, we talk about how, AI is very much a powerful tool in the tool belt to help give us that North Star, give us that direction. But to your point, the human element, so important, right? And I love that the course of my time here hosting the podcast, whenever we go down this rabbit hole of AI or discussing these specific types of technologies, we talk about the human element. And what I'd love to dig in, and I know it's a bit of a loose question, but where do you see you as a consumer? Let's just take a different hat on, right? Let's say as a consumer, not as a marketer. How do you see, and this also helps in a way frame up how you as a marketer think about consumers, because we're all consumers in the day, right? How is AI technology powering the way that you think about shopping, right? And then we're going to get into a little bit of UB specific conversation because I really want to dig into your mission driven model. But how do you think, as consumers such as yourself, you're thinking about it in the CPG space, the retail space? Um, how does that then make you think about that as a marketer?
Yeah. I think me personally as a consumer, I am so excited for the refinement of better information, better searches, better curation of information that is all kind of handed to me in something that might have taken me hours and hours before. I am super guilty. I have used ChatGPT from grocery shopping to vacation planning to outfit planning to helping to create intense schedules and different people that need to play different parts in, different components. And so I use it literally for everything. I'm on it constantly throughout the day. And so as a consumer, anybody that can do that for me, or when I'm looking for something and it is all presented to me in a super easy and digestible format, I'm all for it. I will give all of my data and information, whatever they need to know about me to make it better. And so I'm super excited about what that unlocks. I just think it makes everyone smarter and faster in everything that they're doing.
Yeah, so you're describing like agentic consumership, right? It's like you have this personal concierge, they know everything about you. And yeah, that's the trend that we're going towards, right? So let's then put back on that marketer hat, right? So with Yoobi, right? You're a mission-driven business, right? Um, how do you adapt to that change in consumer discovery, right? So instead of searching the way we normally would on a Google or Bing, people still use that. Um, how do you then make sure that your brand, your mission, what you're trying to achieve as a marketer is front and center? Have you thought about that yet? It's okay if you haven't, but I'm just curious to pick your brain on it.
It's a great question. So, what is interesting for us is the mission is at the heart of everything that we do. And at the end of the day, the more product we sell, the more kids we can benefit. And the challenge for us actually is that folks don't understand that. Like, it's actually really hard to communicate what our mission is, to get people to even realize it's there, understand the impact that we're having, et cetera. And so we're starting there, just basically to say who cares and why, and how do we continue to communicate that in a way that's really effective. Now, I do think there's a lot to say in terms of search is forever changing, retail media will forever change, like all of these pieces and parts when people are going out, because I think um people probably aren't searching for or looking for mission based stationery and school supplies companies. But if you can grab them in that moment of discovery or when they're trying to learn more, we need to really be thoughtful about how and where we show up in those spaces and what we do with that millisecond of attention that we have from them, to make sure that they understand not only the amazing product that we have, but just the greater impact that we're having in the world.
Right, right. So if I'm reinterpreting what you're saying here, it's lean in with your core value proposition, right? Like that's your identity as the brand. And this, I think, goes beyond just Ubi, right? It's any brand thinking about how they reimagine their positioning in this new ecosystem. But I like what you said about how do we tap into that moment of discovery and then make that emotional impact, right? And we're doing things here, and this isn't a plug for CTAG, but we're doing things here on the neurocontext side of things. That's definitely trying to tap into that, and I think that's going to be not the bleeding edge because that's just a weird term to use, but I think it's definitely going to be the next frontier and how these models begin to adapt and evolve and try to do exactly that. And I think mission driven companies, that's a great area to lean into, right? It's like I want to be able to reach consumers when they care the most, right? So how do we predict that? How do we get to that? And I don't know if we found that signal yet or if we're on the verge of figuring that out, but it's exciting to see that the technology can be used in various different ways, right? Um, so leaning back into a little bit of UB and just mission based marketing, right? Um, as you continue to adapt to these new technologies, do you think that there's an area for evolution where, and I guess it goes, and I'm kind of jumping ship here, but I guess it goes back to that discovery element. Do you think consumers are going to be more aware that, and I guess this is the promise that you're hoping to do, right? Is make them more aware that their purchase habits actually have an impact, right? So how can you then think of using the technology at your disposal, your marketing message to make that impact? And I know that's a loaded question and maybe there's only so much you could share, but tell me a little bit about that. Like what is the space where you feel like you could bring that value proposition more to the forefront and make it less about just a purchase?
I think our biggest tool to actually do the storytelling that we need to and where we can bring the faces to life that we are actually helping is through social. And so we're thinking a lot about through social, how do we utilize that channel to grab the attention and to be able to do some storytelling? But then we know at the end of the day, it's all going to be about the conversion. And so, how do we start top of funnel, top of funnel with a pretty immediate tie to the bottom of the funnel to actually create the sale. And some of it we know will be longer term, and we just want people to get to know us and understand us as a brand. But as a small, scrappy company, we can't do brand building forever and ever and ever and hope maybe 5 years down the road someone purchases the product. We've got to have pretty immediate results, and kids are only in our core demographic for so long.
Right, right. So the challenge will always persist, basically. Got it. Well, that's the fun part of it too, right? That's what makes marketing so exciting. Okay, so I know we're kind of getting into the tail end of some of our conversation here, and one of the things that always drew me to conversations with you, um, and I think people will see it, and they always hear it when they meet you, is there's a level of authenticity to you. I think that you represent yourself in a way that is true to you, and I think your journey has been, stepping. I think we talked about it. Like you've now stepped into this authentic self of yours. It may not have always been that way. So I would love for you to share with listeners. How has that evolution happened for you? Like, how did you go into this authentic self as a female leader in such a competitive space? Um, I love talking to you about it when we have, and I'd love to have you share that a little bit here.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think so many of us, when we first start our career, um, you're in whatever company that you're at, and you just want to be a good employee, right? You want to do what they want. You want to show up in a way that is rewarded, and so you immediately out of the gates are kind of pressured to show up in a certain way that maybe does or does not fit with who you are. And it has taken me a lot of time and mentorship to really be really reflective of what's working for me and what's not. And what became very clear to me was when I did not show up as my authentic self, I did not gain the alignment that I needed. I did not get the results that I wanted. And I took all of my mental energy to be something that I was not. And so I whenever I have the opportunity to connect with people or to coach folks earlier within their career, I uh, I tell them that their superpower is truly who they are. And if that doesn't seem to fit within the culture of the company that they're at, it's actually not a them problem, it's a fit problem, and that they should continue to find those places where who they are is truly embraced, where it actually brings out the best in them. And that's really hard to hear because again, like so many times people just want to be the best employee and get rewarded, but when they show up and can do their best work, that is what is going to continue to propel their future career. And even harder as a female, I think sometimes because have biases or you believe you have to show up in a super masculine way to drive results and seem like you're being taken seriously. But I think the more authentic you can be and the more you can bring those walls down, the more the true human connection can happen, and you'll get people's buy-in and alignment and partnership so much faster.
It's great. I love that. And then I guess part of that question becomes, you're describing like what you can do, right? What do you think companies can do, right? What have you seen companies that they do well to nurture environments, right, where women such as yourself can thrive as authentic leaders? And where have you seen them fall? Like, you don't have to name the companies, but like, what's your perspective on it?
Yeah. The word I'll use is psychological safety. So I think if you can truly create the environments and uphold leaders that create environments that are psychologically safe and allow people to show up as their true selves, that is what allows everyone to continue to drive really powerful results. And places where it becomes more about overcorrection or fitting a specific mold or one leader's idea, I think, of what good looks like, the less you'll have the results that you really want to see. For example, there's one time along the journey I had a girlfriend who I adored, and she was so smart and so amazing. The only feedback that she had gotten on this really big presentation was that her eyebrows moved too much during the presentation. And that killed her soul, where she's like, "Oh my God, did you hear anything that I was saying?" And so stuff like that, I think just like let people, she moves her eyebrows when she talks. That is her thing. Let her show up in her way of that makes her embrace that. I mean, that's kind of a fun little quirk that she has. And so just letting people be themselves and coaching them to be more of who they are.
So I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong here, you're also describing emotional intelligence, right? That's like a huge proponent to this, where I think organizations love to hire various viewpoints, right? But then when they actually get those viewpoints or those people in the room, they're like, oh, well, I don't really like what you're saying right there, right now, but I'm glad you're here, kind of thing, right? When I think, to your point, authenticity plays a role as well into that equation. Um, okay, so we are very much at the tail end of our time together today, and I feel like we moved so quickly. We had such a robust conversation. It was in various different categories and buckets. Usually at AdTech Heroes, we ask a question, which is, what would be your superpower if you had one in ad tech? What would that be? And as you were talking, I felt like you said it, which is your authenticity, right? So is that fair to say, or would you have another answer to that question?
That is a good question. I would say authenticity is definitely um part of it. I almost wonder if it's actually empathy or curiosity. So the reason that I feel comfortable being authentic, want to be authentic, is I so badly want to create environments where everyone can be themselves. And so I never want anyone to feel like they need to be a certain way or show up a certain way with me. And that is all driven in a kind of a lens of empathy for me. And so that's why I show up authentically, because that's my invitation to others to show up authentically. So yes, I would say authenticity and empathy are probably my superpowers.
It's awesome. I love it. Um, well, thank you. And I do have a curveball last question for you. Yeah. So I've been trying to incorporate this here and there with people who I feel like would have good answers. And the idea behind it is, and I stole this from another podcast, so I'm nothing special. Don't be like, oh, John, good question. Um, what is one thing that truly excites you in the world of advertising ad tech, right? And one thing that kind of enrages you. And I know that's an aggressive word, but like those two parallels, like tell me what you think.
I would say what excites me is I think this this continuation of being able to be smarter faster is something I get really really excited about. And again, particularly as a smaller company, our ability to move quickly and respond to trends and consumer sentiment is truly a superpower out there in the world. And so, the more of those types of opportunities or technology, that makes me super, super excited. And then something that enrages me. Well, I would say again, as a smaller player, something that enrages me or is frustrating is um, platforms, companies, partners that kind of poo-poo some of the smaller guys and don't necessarily believe that there's a one-size approach to everything, is unwilling to compromise and create solutions that might work. Because I think folks that do work with us, and we work with some of the biggest partners out there, but when they're able to see the special spark that we can bring, or the market that we're capturing, like it's just a different conversation. And so that's probably one thing I would say, again, coming from big company and small company, that is not always ideal.
Right. So it's thoughtfulness in everything that we do is kind of what we're preaching here. Sarah, it's a pleasure. This is awesome. I cannot thank you enough for joining us. I think I really always enjoy chatting with you, and today was, the same as it's always been. I know I'll see you around. I'm sure we'll run into each other, and I'm eager for those moments and to connect you with other friends in the industry. So I know. Thank you for joining us today. I know this is all the time we have, and look forward to connecting with you soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Always so fun. Thank you so much.
I'll see you at the bar. We're getting espresso martini soon.
I love it.
Thanks, Sarah.